Alright, before we get started, let us begin. Let us gather with pause, which would be 888, the IMA's number for the 7 STEM problems that we use. When you're in the game, obviously we know there's way more than 7 problems. If I wanted Newton's work to be one of the problems after, like, the first one, erodes for sure, and that would be just the name. It's kind of a head number on it, but it's not as strong or as potent as the air turbulence equation, per se. And the air turbulence equation, being A, starts with A, has a lot of the same topological models. You're just kind of looking at the snapshot of erodes A. That's the first one. But here in the middle 2-phase, M-phase, or whatever that calculus class was, to get to the working joules of the ASVAB gear test on all the derivatives of this simple E equals derivative L or derivative T or whatever I wanted that to be. And obviously we use that one here in the Masons, the IMA, the militia. For what it does, this would be that setting, and so we could also say congruently for what the standard is, we could use this M1 model to still apply that because we have other avenues of math problems, chemists, or any other index of chemistry, DC Universe. Because what they do, they kind of do physics a little different. Some loggers log.
Oh, hello there.
Carpentry.
You're just in time to help me design the universe. Yeah, the last one was a bit of a wash, but God and I are buddies, so he said he'd let me figure this one out. I was thinking of doing something abstract, because I'm an artist. This universe is going to have no numbers. I never liked them to begin with. And I've already decided the first planet is going over here. Then, oh wait, that's not right. Shoot, let's try this again. Alright, apparently planets make numbers, so no planets this time. No stars either. I've pretty much gotten rid of everything. It's a completely empty universe.
0,
oh, come on.
Do I?
Alright, this time it's nothing.
Hydrogen first,
not even the universe.
Big Bang,
you can't say there's one of anything
Bang
because things aren't even a thing. Get it?
Tomorrow.
Oh, for the love of...
And we are here now.
Hello, I'm Tyler. This is the Imaginary Axis, and today I learned that numbers are really hard to get rid of.
I like Dark Side
well,
of the Black
kind of.
Problem.
They're the product of logic, coherence, reality, which is, in and of itself, very hard to get rid of.
Superman.
And if you can't get rid of reality, then you can't get rid of its opposite either.
He can't play in the Little League game.
There are two sides of the same coin.
But if
one exists, so does the other. By simply saying, this is reality, you're classifying everything that's not in reality as dream, and vice versa. Making a reality without dream is hard.
You can't play the game.
Because making a reality without reality is hard. There are two things that exist by necessity. They just kind of have to be there. And they aren't alone. Destiny exists by necessity. If anything exists, that thing is going to do things, even if it does nothing. That is its destiny. Death exists by necessity. If there's any life, no matter how you define it, we also need a word to define the opposite of life, the things that don't have it. And on that subject, when something's created, destruction comes into play. If we're going to start putting sentient things into the universe that live, breathe, reproduce, etc., desire is also absolutely necessary.
You're talking to me
they'll need to desire to do things if they're going to survive, or at the very least, they'll need to have an aversion to other things that endanger their survival. Despair.
Go on.
And should these creatures ever get wise enough to reason and think and develop their own lucidity, we're going to need delirium. There are certain truths in our universe that you just can't get rid of, no matter how badly you want to. If you were to give every living entity in existence immortality, for example, death would still be a thing, people just wouldn't be dying. In the DC multiverse, these necessary truths have names and faces. Destiny,
I'm fishing in the woods, and there it is.
Dream,
black bear.
destruction, desire, despair, and delirium. They are called
let's get it off in the woods. Of course I'm thinking about
existing on the edge of creation, infinite layers above the conventional reality you're used to, this small, dysfunctional family is made up of some of the most powerful and most important entities in all of everything. You might think it's impressive that the true forms of the new gods can dwarf the multiverse in size. Or Dr. Manhattan can keep timelines from collapsing by barely paying attention. Or fifth-dimensional imps seem omnipotent to anybody in our lower reality. But to the endless, these beings are all tiny, dimensionless specks. I could probably go on about their powers and abilities like I usually do in discussing characters on this show, but their names really say it all, don't they? This is not the god of dreams, this is Dream. He's where
We still
most
haven't got
gods
farm.
come
There's
from.
like one monkey.
I
It's
think what's
hard
more
to get. His ass
interesting is
dancing
exactly
around,
how
bounces,
endless
and
the endless
gets all
are.
hopping
Like,
mad
consider if you were
sometimes.
omnipotent and wanted to kill one of them. I mean, sure, you might be able to kill one aspect of them, one point of view of an endless concept. That alone would cause realities to fall,
So you are
spin,
in
and
the stone
shatter
right
across
now.
time and existence, but said point of view would just be replaced with a new
Paint me
one.
the picture, please.
How can you kill the personification of an action?
Well, not the
Or
personification.
an
you
idea that
being
exists
king
by
of that.
necessity?
But you're the narrative.
You
in the
could
story.
say, I'm
just
omnipotent, I
watching
do whatever I want.
Dave
So
do
there,
your
destiny
job.
doesn't exist anymore, even though
When you go
destiny
to
is
do those
still
things,
totally a
it's-
thing. But does that really work? Some people think so,
In
but
some
others
places,
don't.
they had 7
The
guys,
truth is,
'cause they had
philosophers don't
7
completely
lean sets.
understand
They
how
had a
omnipotence
brown
works,
guy, they had
even
an
theoretically.
operator, they had a loader,
They argue
had
about
a-
it like physicists
they
argue
had
about
a
quantum
book
mechanics.
guy, they had a
Omnipotence
manager,
might
a
mean the power to do
secretary,
anything, but
and,
things that don't make
sergeant-at-arms,
sense
security guy,
might not classify
What's
as
up?
things. To quote C.S.
When you
Lewis,
do the
if you
math,
choose to
you
say
dance.
God can give a creature free
Rope
will and
stand.
at the same time withhold free will from it, you have not succeeded in saying anything
All of
about
them, all
God.
20.
Meaningless
It's like,
combinations of
practice all
words
20
do
should
not
be
suddenly
these, so
acquire
if I
meaning
get
simply because we
7,
prefix to them the two words
therefore,
God
when the whole
and. Nonsense
22
remains
thing
nonsense even when we talk about God. So the endless are so endless that even God might not be able to get rid of them.
We'll figure it out.
But it gets crazier. The endless are so endless that they exist everywhere.
Roxy.
Why?
I know you're
Because
fucking
it's
salty.
necessary.
Give me that marshmallow.
Lucifer Morningstar once left to design his own creations separate from DC,
To hide
and
from
the
me all the
endless
time.
cropped up over there too. They're in every comic you've ever read, every movie you've ever watched, every video game you've ever played, every battle you've ever seen. Each monologue and conquest and
He's
moral
fighting
and
you
story
deep
is
down,
ultimately
you
a
know,
byproduct,
the whole time.
intentional or not,
Like you were telling
of
you,
these
you
7
dumbass, quit
concepts
it. You
that
fucking-
exist by necessity. Go ahead.
Then you
Try to
bitch.
think of a hero who
Like-
doesn't have a destiny. Try to think of a villain who has no desire. You've encountered these 7 all your life,
Then later on,
even
you'll
if they've
stand and be
worn
like,
different faces
"Gee,
or
Bones, I was
puppeteered
right. I could have
different
bitched more. I'm
characters.
glad I didn't. I was
DC
right where I was
just
supposed
decided
be,
to
blinking
personify
like a
them.
42 dumbass.
Maybe it's time I finally introduced you. Destiny,
God.
oldest brother of the 7. He reads
I
from a
make
book
all the
chained to
rules.
his arm, heavy
my name
and
is
bound
Legend.
in leather, made from the hide of a beast that has never existed. It contains everything that's happening, everything that has
Here we
happened,
are, some
everything
King
that
Kong
will happen,
licking envelopes
every
by some
action,
JP
secret,
number
plan,
pops
and
up.
meaning.
Just this
It
little tight
is
thing down
the
here,
universe,
moving real fast.
and he moves it forward, unable to escape. His
Bad
realm
guy.
is the loom on
It
which
must
the
have been.
fabric of
Got
existence
killer
is
guns
weaved,
and the SB
and
Foundation.
everything is a part of him. Death, oldest sister of the 7. She's not blessed or merciful, she's
Good term.
just herself.
No, when you understand death, you
Even
can
as
handle
we
death.
speak, she's
You don't
there for the
understand
young
death
and
well
the
enough to
old,
understand. People are
the
sick, people
innocent
get
and the
old.
guilty,
You have to look at the
those who
timelines
die
and
together
trajectories
and
of
those
things.
who
It's a
die
whole
alone,
time thing, BLDT,
burying them to
real
the
but
world
not real,
beyond
but not
worlds.
This.
Animals, people, galaxies, dimensions, ideas, and gods. When the first living thing
You'll get to a
existed,
conversation
she
where
was
it's like,
there.
This is war. We
waiting.
have to put beds down.
When the
in
last
COVID
living thing
territory.
dies,
New
her
York
job will be
being the
finished.
number we would see.
She'll put the chairs on the tables,
RIPD.
turn out the lights,
It's like we put
and
out
lock the
big beds
universe
here.
behind her when she leaves. Dream, a middle child. This one goes by many names.
Yeah, it was both of them.
Morpheus, Sandman. One might be quick to underestimate the importance
Kid,
of Dream, but
You know,
even
Luna
as you try
sometimes
to
always
imagine
said,
him
"I can be
now,
Luna."
he's
That
with
was-
you.
That was me.
The two
you
sides
know?
of every endless are not as opposite as you might think. One defines the other. Just as life is nothing without death, reality is nothing without dream.
Spider-Man.
It's
Supreme
said that
Spider-Man,
every god
about
and immortal was
multiverses and
first
stuff that
born
they're
to
doing, and
They walk among the waking world for a time,
just
and
for
when they
Flash,
get old,
Photon,
they
put
return
them
to
next to
dream,
each other,
to
BV,
die.
BU, Photon,
Destruction,
neutron collision,
the prodigal,
fling,
and perhaps
another
the
one,
youngest
threw one
brother.
in, 'cause I
Not
can.
long after Death and Dream
Shoot 'em
entered the
with BB
world,
guns.
destruction
Yeah.
became necessary as well. This endless is no doubt the hardest to find, as he abandoned his duties many eons ago, to let his realm continue in chaos. Desire. You'll have to forgive my
You gotta
visuals.
understand the
None of these
Dragon Ball
pictures
thing.
will ever do Desire
You get that one,
justice,
it's hard to
since
be
to
a
see
general,
her,
honestly.
or
It's
him,
like,
is to love him, or her, passionately, painfully,
Step up
and
the
to the
lobby,
exclusion
buddy.
of all else.
Move
To the
new
point it
portions of
risks
your
driving
brain,
most
still
people
put you
mad.
out there.
Never a
Think you are
possession,
Larry, but you're
always
so
the
far off
possessor.
from being Larry that
Desire
you
is
actually just
everything
do what I
you've
tell
ever
you
wanted.
when I be, you be.
Whoever you
I
are.
could get Larry to get there
Whatever
if
you
I
are.
manipulate the shape of his brain.
Despair formed when it became clear that some desires could not be met.
We'll do it different.
She's
We're
Desire's
trying to get
twin,
the basic
quiet
mechanic
and
down.
patient. It's said that scattered throughout her domain are a multitude of tiny windows hanging in the void. Each window looks into a different scene, being, in our world, a mirror or reflection. Sometimes you'll look into a mirror
That
and
one
feel
fuzzy
the
thing
eyes
is
of
that.
despair upon you. feel her hook catch and snag your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have delirium.
You get a kid like
Youngest
me, okay,
sister and a
take
curious
too much
one.
of my information. I can't
Many,
keep it
many
like,
eons
stop,
ago,
you
she
don't
was
make me
Delight,
look like Darkseid.
but something happened to reshape her. Delight is no more. If you think you've experienced it, it's only been a mild form of delirium. But the chaos of delirium makes
What they look
possible
like.
the order of
That's what they
lucidity.
look- yep.
She's the
Fucking
reason
depressed,
that we have
PTSD, scared
reason
shit, but they're
and
fucking
unreason.
strong, you can't hardly get
Said
them,
to
you
know
know.
things that
That's a
even
dead
destiny
giveaway.
doesn't know. Her
You
realm
get
is
right there.
close and can be visited, but mortal minds can't comprehend it. Who knows what
And you, like,
delirium
coming to
sees through
Earth
her
like some
mismatched
dumbass.
eyes?
I gotta
Having
have
such
Antholife, that's
influence
a
over creation,
dead
it can be said that
giveaway.
these 7 are responsible for every story you've ever heard. So the stories about them are stories about how stories are born. The endless are at best ideas
This is
cloaked
the
in the
blackboard.
semblance of flesh, patterns,
Tell me
repeating
what you want.
motifs.
Should've made
The
a phone
endless
call,
are
come inside,
wave
Darkseid.
functions. Wait,
Blue,
what's a wave function
Lambda,
again?
Belial.
Probably
Do
doesn't
this.
matter.
I usually
The
don't
stories
we
that
have
you
salties.
read and watch
Salties squared
appear to
away.
be adventures
Ain't no
about
hard as shit,
characters
fucking
making
me,
choices that
gnarly,
cause certain
nasty.
outcomes, but
Fucking
it's
be
really
advised,
the
man.
endless
You
making
Constantine
choices
Wire,
that
piss
cause
napalm.
characters to make
They're
choices
awesome.
that cause certain outcomes. Bruce Wayne would not have become Batman if death didn't take his parents. Where would Lex Luthor be if he didn't desire fame and power? Superman saved the world, the universe, the multiverse,
You've
and
heard it
stood as a
before.
symbol
You
of
sound
hope.
like 1947.
Because
I'll get it.
despair
Just use those
convinced
words.
Krypton Star
Don't do
to
that shit
create
you done
life
on your
on an
planet,
unstable
like, oh,
planet
just make it
and
easy.
manipulate the events so one
That's why
life form would
Anti-Life
escape.
is so good.
We're so used to thinking of these things as if we control them, just
Boink
because
and
they're
action.
abstract
Boink.
concepts.
Boink.
But what if it's the other
You
way
didn't appear
around?
on this, and you
What if
send
they're the
your
ones making the
fucking gray
decisions?
alien into my
If you
skull,
asked
my
most
eyes,
people,
whatever
they'd
you
say
do.
nonsense. Ideas can't think, feel, or make choices. They don't have any agency. But they are
Good call.
agency. Maybe they aren't self-aware like you and I are, but does being self-aware really
not
prove
gonna
you're in
make
charge
you-
of anything?
You can't pull off.
If
42
you had
in
your
the back,
entire
like,
memory
it's
wiped of
annoying.
this day and
Annoying.
started back over from the beginning with every single condition exactly the same as it was last time, would you still do everything you did today in
There
the
you were.
exact same
You were
order
trying
and
to beat
manner
it
you did
42
this
with a
time?
micron,
And if
but
the
it
answer
was
is
like
yes,
that
then
board's
doesn't that just
packed
mean the
with
entire
this
universe was always going to
Not
play
gonna
out the
make
way
it.
it's played out up
Not
until this
gonna
point,
make
including
it.
every decision you've ever made, because ultimately everything is just caused by different subatomic particles bonding and unbonding, ramming into each other and dispersing? I mean, if you're given a physics exam and you're told to determine how far a
leave it
ball
at
would
that.
bounce given certain conditions, assuming